October still might be a while away, but there's never a bad time to talk about some schlocky horror. Michigan Report from Hell is a game that was only released in Japan and the European PAL region. This is also one of the earlier works that Goichi Suda, aka Suda51, was involved in, where he was the initial planner and one of the producers. In it, you're a cameraman for the news station Zaka TV. You're in Chicago, right in the Lake Michigan region, where you're investigating a mysterious fog. When grotesque monsters appear and other strange happenings occur, that's when the hell part of the game comes in. The gameplay is pretty hands-off for the most part. Much of what you'll be doing is filming the events surrounding you and your team, while sometimes bringing attention to points of interest for your reporter to interact with. You'll even occasionally have to give something a good smack. The combat is also quite indirect. All you do is point at the enemy, and the reporter will shoot it. As you film, you can accumulate points in 3 categories: suspense, erotic, and immoral. Suspense is increased the easiest, as all you need to do is aim your camera at the current action. Erotic is gained by bringing attention to some more suggestive imagery. Finally, immoral is increased by doing rude actions, such as subbing people for no reason, or filming things that you probably shouldn't. Whichever category you have the most points in will determine how the very last cutscene plays out. This game is pretty obscure, even in the regions where it was released. However, among those that have played it, it's become infamous for its awful English voice acting. The acting ranges from hilariously stilted, cringy, bizarre, and inappropriate, oftentimes all at once. The awkward English script doesn't exactly help either.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Let's get it right, okay?
No. I'm not your mother.
No way! I've had enough danger for one day. Thank you very much.
Speaking of inappropriate, the battle music in this version is a nice, soothing tune, as opposed to something, suspenseful. It feels a bit jarring, to say the least. But are there any redeeming qualities to be found? Yes, actually. The graphics aren't awful for their time, and there are some pretty gross and disturbing moments with the monsters. One of these includes the reporter Anne being eaten by the mouth of what used to be Pamela's vagina. Is that crude of me to say? Well, even if it is, it's true. And it's nasty. There's also a couple of genuinely good moments of voice acting. Hennings is a very minor character, but he gives a convincing death scene.
I was a fool. I let my whole team get killed. What kind of director am I, anyway?
Meanwhile, the sinister Dr. O'Connor gives an appropriately smarmy and slimy performance.
Trying to use that brain of yours, are you? Zaka Group is a huge enterprise made up of a parent company and some 1,300 subsidiaries. Did you ever stop to wonder how it got so big?
And then there's Paula, one of the last reporters you'll meet. While it is a bit rusty at times, her voice acting is by far the best of the main characters.
Flavorings, amino acid, sodium citrate, calcium lactate, potassium chloride. We're waiting for rescue. Please come save us. What are you talking about? I don't know which button is for the lights. Say, Mr. Briscoe, you guys do the rest. That's enough reporting.
It's just a shame that the characters with the strongest performances are also the ones you'll see the least of. However, even if all of the voice acting was decent, and the combat music more fitting, this would still be a pretty mediocre and unmemorable game. The concept is a pretty interesting one, I think, as a sort of found footage type of game where you're the cameraman filming these strange events. There are also various points where a reporter can actually die, which means you'll skip entire sections of the game based on your choices. I even think it's interesting that the type of ending you get affects the player character's appearance. Unfortunately, the execution falls rather flat. The lack of direct input from the player makes things feel pretty slow at times. I don't necessarily mind the more indirect gameplay, but I wish there was more for you to do than just go on scavenger hunts for the items you need. It's even with the game's short length, it sometimes felt dragged on longer than it needs to be. There's even a whole section where you need to find an infrared attachment for your camera, which seemingly only exists to pad out the game's playtime. That, and to potentially give a pretty creepy, albeit nonsensical jump scare. The lackluster story doesn't help either. The whole incident started because Dr. O'Connor created a virus that turns people into monstrous biological weapons. In other words, it's a knockoff of Resident Evil's narrative, and not a very good one at that. Finally, it's all topped off with a climax that's rather, well, anticlimactic. However, it's also hilariously baffling to watch and listen to in English, so there's that at least.
Come on, I'll race you! Ah! Ow! That hurts! Don't kill me!
But the voice acting isn't the only place where they dropped the ball when the game was exported from Japan. The Japanese version featured bonus levels with real-life actress and model Yan Yinling. She was also featured in various imagery throughout the game, as well as in promotional material. However, any and all mentions and appearances of her are missing in the PAL version, which I imagine has to do with licensing issues. And then there are the segments that are downright broken. After completing the game, you're given the option to watch cutscenes and view hidden tapes you found. However, instead of actually doing that, you'll instead be taken to a strip club where you'll get to see Anne striking various sexy poses. Hope you're turned on by this! No matter how you play it, Michigan Report from Hell is not a very good game. However, I can't help but find a bit of endearment with it. The story might be a bland imitation of much better ones, but just the fact that the gameplay tried to do something different makes it hard for me to outright hate it. Sure, the execution could have been better, but also could have been much worse. As a proof of concept, it's not terrible, even if it's also not great either. And if nothing else, playing it in English certainly makes for a good laugh. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to click like, and subscribe if you want to see more.